We are back. It's another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. Today we are talking about the movie Mean Girls. So this is going to be fun. I think this is a movie that I had seen before, thought it was funny. Now I'm watching it through a different context, and I'm gonna introduce my co-host today. So we have Steven Shapiro. Steven, how's it going?
Good to see you, Kevin. Really happy to be with you.
Yeah, and we've talked before. We've had a lot of good discussions in here, and you're pulling in your sister here. So Nancy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Kevin. It's good to see you again.
You too. And I'm going to dig into more of like what you two are both working on and why we picked this movie. Actually, I'm just going to start with that.
Okay.
Tell me what you're working on and why'd you guys pick this movie when we were talking about which one we should go with?
Well, Kevin, Nancy and I are both lifetime educators. We both spent over 30 years, me mostly as a teacher and program director and district leader, and Nancy as a middle school counselor. So we were steeped in the world of schools and the way that things went in the school world with kids and parents. And when we left the school world, we realized that there were a lot of challenges right now for kids and parents. The mental health crisis has been a serious concern for us over the last 5 to 10 years. And just the breakdown of family structure and the lack of sort of decency and civility, kindness, there's been a lot of challenges. So we have really focused our post-school life on helping parents raise emotionally healthy kids in close-knit families. We're really taking the fight upstream from schools right into families, kitchen tables and living rooms, helping parents raise really amazing kids that are grounded in the kind of things that they care most about.
Perfect.
Absolutely. I would just add to that, we live in a world of possibility of imagining where we're sending emotionally connected, really grounded kids to school so that teachers are spending their time really taking them from there and being able to teach from that point.
Maybe we're trying to make it so teachers have to deal less with mean girls.
That's right. Well, that's a perfect segue. I've never done this before. I'm going to try playing the preview of this movie, so people who have not seen it or they need a little refresher, they can go through that, and I'll just do the first minute or so.
We have a new student with us. She just moved here from Africa.
Welcome. I'm from Michigan.
Great. I'm 16. Until today, I was homeschooled. And then it was goodbye, Africa. And hello, high school.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm Janice. This is Damien.
Watch out, new meat coming through.
This map shows the school's central nervous system, the cafeteria.
You got your cool Asians, burnouts, jocks, the greatest people you will ever meet, and the worst.
So you've never been to a real school before? Shut up. Shut up.
I didn't say anything. Plastics. Who are the plastics?
They're teen royalty.
That's Karen Smith.
She is one of the dumbest girls you will ever meet.
I'm kind of psychic. Really? It's like I have ESPN or something.
Gretchen Wieners.
All right, that's a good one. I feel like it sets up the movie right there, so we don't have to do it. They got the main characters in there. Man, this is gonna be a fun one to talk about. I mean, if I just start off, it's got a great cast, like a great cast.
Amazing. Yeah.
Who doesn't love Tina Fey and Amy Poehler?
Tina Fey, Tina Fey is so good. Yeah.
Tim Meadows, Lindsay Lohan is great in it. Amanda Seyfried is great in it. Yeah, it's a great cast.
Yep, for sure. Like they're just so it's a great cast. You got people like even like early on too. I mean, because really Rachel McAdams really didn't really break through yet. Like this was probably her biggest role at the time. She played that role perfectly. I almost look back at her now and I'm like, I've looked at other roles and I'm like, wow, like she's not at all like she wasn't that in that role.
Yeah.
She did a good job breaking from that. But yeah, I mean it sets up school like in a parody, but in a lot of ways pretty accurate.
Right. And I think, Nancy, maybe you want to mention the origins of the story because it's a movie, but it's based on a book.
For sure. And so Rosalind Wiseman is a New York Times bestseller who wrote the book Queen Bees and Wannabes. And back when I started my counseling career, when I was in the midst of my counseling career and that book came out, it was such a canon for parents of, moms who had or parents who had girls. And it was really an important guide for parents to teach their kids how to navigate adolescence and to remind parents also like to remember your own adolescence and what that was like. And so when I really focused on and enjoyed Mean Girls long ago, and I think it was 2004 when it came out, I was looking at it from a counselor's perspective, from an educator's perspective. Now I'm looking at it when Steven and I watched it the other day, and I might add, it was his first time watching it.
Oh, really?
It was so fun to watch it with him
I
because
didn't even know there was such a thing as Mean Girls until like a week ago.
yeah. P.S. I did. And so like as we watched it together, it was super fun and to listen to him laugh and everything else. But we were really looking at it from what parenting messages were also in that story.
Yeah. Well, so this will add some interesting context. I watched the first half of it with my 12, almost 13-year-old daughter. So maybe bad parenting to start with there. but it was definitely, you know, like it was definitely interesting, like watching it from my point of view. I had already seen it, but then like just also like watching her reactions and asking
Did
her
she
questions.
say anything? Did she have any responses or reactions?
I mean, it did not seem very realistic for her at all, compared to her school experience. But she's definitely some of it, some of it related. Yeah. And it was interesting to see like just her reaction of how much like that social life really drives the high school experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we're in a school though where they wear uniforms, and that like immediately changes everything, everything compared to what we're doing. And I relate to the movie Mean Girls because I grew up in the area where they shot this. Like I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so there was definitely like I totally remember that. I'm seeing the cars and people driving, coming and leaving, and meeting in the mall and having all the social interactions in the mall.
Exactly. One of the things I really love about the movie is that, you know, you have this Lindsay Lohan's character, Cady, who comes from being homeschooled in Africa. So she's like been in the jungle, right, in the wild. And she's been, had this really experiential learning type of way of going through school. And then she comes to her high school, her new high school, and she's really in the jungle. Like it probably feels more dangerous, more scary, all those things. And her parents were so like sweetly clueless, right? Because they for example, when she goes to school for the first day and she comes home and she's had this very crazy indoctrination of what public school is like, and her, you know, her parents are like, how was school? Fine. Did you were the people nice? No. Did you make any friends? Yes. Like we went from homeschool girl who probably really had a very interesting connection with her parents to yes, no, fine. No, they weren't nice. But yeah, I made friends. Like, what is that? I made friends with the not nice people.
Yeah. And it shows kind of what parenting can become as your kids get older and the importance of how you parent kids when they're younger, when they're still more engaged with you in conversation. I just want to say, by the way, to the audience, if anybody in the audience is playing that drinking game where you have to drink every time Nancy or I say the word parent, you're going to be totally wasted by the end of this episode. Just going to say that now.
Yeah.
We should add that as the element too. Yes, now a drinking game. So,
exactly.
So hopefully everyone's not in a car and they can listen to this and go through here. So going through this and setting up the scene for this, I mean, it's a suburban school, so you have different elements to that. But did you relate to it going through like your school experience? I know you both live in Ohio and Columbus area right now, but how did you relate to this, like from what your experience was with school?
For me, I didn't relate to it as much as myself going through school, because I don't think I was really, as a female going through school, definitely you know that there are mean girls and there are things that are scary and there are culture, you know, different cultures you have to navigate through. But I really watched it from, again, not only the parent perspective, but also from the school counselor perspective, because guess who I spent a lot of time working with? The girls that were really unkind to one another, unkind to themselves, because usually the people who are that mean aren't feeling so great themselves. But the other thing that was really staggering to me was especially that Regina George character who can like just kill you with her eyes, right? It has that negative energy that pierces through you, is working with the parents of those types of girls who were kind of scared of them and had no idea how to relate to them, which was always a very, very sad thing for me because, again, by the time you're in high school, you're in middle school or high school, it's a little late to start that building of that relationship. It's not too late, but it was always sad to me.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot
I
harder.
watched it with a little bit of sadness this time, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, I mean, and that was really Amy Poehler's character as Regina George's mom,
Yeah,
and oh yeah, yeah,
the
that was
best.
hard to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll have things to say about her as this episode goes on.
Yeah. All right, do you want to jump into categories?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. We'll go through here, and maybe we'll skip around, but we'll start out with the John Keating Award of who is the best teacher in here, like who's the one. It doesn't always even have to be the teachers, but were there ones that stood out for you that to even like put into this category that we want to discuss? Because to me, there's clearly one, but
There's
who?
kind of only one. Except it's the one who started out in the first scene, like in her bra in front of the entire class, which was also super confounding.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
think we looked at the character that Tina Fey played, Miss Norbury, and she, as she was a flawed character, she wasn't always perfect, but she was the one who was like really trying to challenge the girls to be better and to call them out and to give them the opportunity. I think one of the poignant scenes, and maybe this is the homecoming scene category, skipping ahead, but the moment when they were all brought down to the gym and they were
for sure.
sharing like, hey, this is where we messed up, and she gave Lindsay Lohan's character Cady a chance to like own her stuff.
Mhm.
And Cady was like, no, I don't think I did anything wrong. In the moment when she said, I'm really disappointed in you. And there was that was a really poignant moment because it was that time when the adult gave the kid a chance to own the stuff. The kid didn't live up to it. And, kids will, whatever kids say, they don't like being yelled at. They don't like what kids really hate is feeling that they've really disappointed somebody who they know has tried to do right by them. And I think that was a really poignant moment where Ms. Norbury shined and Cady shrunk.
Totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that you're right. I mean that scene was like the moment where like yeah, she really stood out as a teacher and yeah, and you could see the learning where I was talking about like those magic moments of education like where you could actually like see it clicking and it definitely it definitely was that moment where you're like yeah, everyone you raise your hand of how many people have had somebody say something bad about you and everyone hand goes up and the same thing how many times have you said something bad about someone behind their back and yeah it's those are the best type of learning moments right it's a so I mean is there anyone else that we would even like consider in there would you throw her parents in Katie's parents
I mean, they were so tangential and so weak. I mean, I give Tim Meadows credit at least a little bit when he saw the burn book and he saw that there was an indication that one of his teachers was making out with a student and he noticed it and cared. That was a good moment.
yeah that's right
I give him credit for that. Small thing, but
Yeah, I think Katie's parents, I think they really meant well. I think they tried. They were definitely in the right space. But that wasn't developed.
yeah
I think for that to have made more of an impact, it would have had to be more developed because I think because they had the relationship they did coming in, having homeschooled her, and then she's, all sexied up every day going to school or, doing the Jingle Bell Rock or whatever the case might have been, they didn't question, we didn't, or at least we weren't privy to watching them question why she was doing the things she was doing or what was interesting about those things to her or what was interesting to her about her friends.
Yeah, and I would add, one of the we'll talk more at the end of the episode. The system that Nancy and I have created for parents to raise emotionally healthy and strong kids is called Our Family Culture, and it's rooted in helping parents say, "What do you care about, and how do you center those things you care about, and talk about them with intention and purpose?" And I would say that was lacking from Cady's
Yeah.
parents, at least in the
What,
film. But they
yeah.
didn't know how to like center them or make them the center of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you really think about it, they've had up until this point, like 16 years or so, like of really trying to shape that, and how quickly that all went away the second she went to
Yeah.
school. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like within weeks that,
Yeah.
that those grounded of trying to figure out what are the values and the things that you really care about and represent. She was like, nope, it's all about, which the term that always came out was like social suicide. Like the social aspects just took over everything else.
Yeah. I mean, in the rare scenes where they showed them, I was thinking like, oh, I wish you had an OFC conversation starter today, because you could really make some serious headway. So I was thinking through that lens about what would have been possible for them as parents.
OFC being Our Family
Our
Culture.
Family Culture,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, perfect. All right, cliques. I mean, so many cliques in this movie. They literally, I mean, even playing the trailer, it's just laying out every one of the cliques. Anything that they missed, or anything that we want to talk about, because it was literally, this whole movie is wrapped around the idea of having different cliques within the social environment of school.
One thing I would say is I think the movie obviously was really focused on the social cliques within the school, but I think what it overlooked, and you got a little bit of it at in the home scenes, but like every family is its own social group as well. And so I think the movie, sort of the thesis of the movie is, once you get to high school, the only social clique that matters is your peer cliques. And what I think it overlooks is the reality, which is that your family as a unit and the kind of core of what your family is about. There was one scene where Janice wanted Cady to steal the burn book. And Cady said, "I don't steal." And it was a moment where it's like, oh, this was like, in my family, we learned we don't take something that's not ours. And so there was a glimpse of that. But I think what the movie did kind of overlooked was the truth that there is an important social clique that we're a part of, maybe not a clique, but a social group we're a part of, which is our family. And if our family is strong and has clear sense of what we're about, that is part of the equation in the school. It's almost as if the movie made it sound like once you get to the school, like everything that happened in your life outside of school is irrelevant. All that matters is like who's at the lunch table. And I don't think that's the reality for kids.
It's interesting because it's such a powerful component of a kid's in that life. It's like, I've made the comments before of like, I don't like, I felt like I had, like a really good childhood. My parents like were active but I don't remember a lot of interaction with my parents in high school. I'm sure I had a lot, but I don't remember it because the social side of it was so powerful. That like there are very few things that I can think back of like really having a lot of interaction with them, especially
that's so
at that
interesting.
16 plus age.
It's also
Once you start
natural and
driving.
normal, right? That's a normal. It's normal for those social interactions to lessen. But I think the thing that is important for parents to recognize, we've been tossing around and hearing a lot about the notion that parents spend 90% of their time with their kids by the time they're 18. 90% of the time they'll ever spend with them, and that's like a staggering.
Yeah.
And the majority of that probably before they're 13 or 14.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that and you think about, wow, in high school, it's going to, the natural way is for us to start separating. The important thing is when we are together, that we're talking about important things. And so you don't want to have those conversations of how was school fine? Would you do nothing? Those aren't the kind of conversations you want to be having with your kids, because you have such finite amount of time left with them that you want to be really helping to shape them into the amazing humans that you hope to turn out into the world in whatever shape that looks.
Yeah. And I would add to that it sort of highlights how important the conversations you have with your kids when they're young, when they're in elementary school or kindergarten or preschool or even middle school, that if you build that really strong foundation, then when they're not so much in conversation with you, who they are is so formed, is so clear that they're not going to be pushed off it by some mean girl at the lunch table. They're like, yeah, I don't need that. I'm going to
When
find
somebody says "boo, you whore," they're not gonna fall off their gourd. You're like, "No, that's not who I am."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that, Kevin?
You are. You are.
Thank you.
All right. So class clown. Who would you have in here?
I mean, Amy Poehler was ridiculous. I mean, as the
She's
mom, she was absurd. And I mean, the bringing the tiki drinks to the girls in their, in their bedroom and all this stuff. And I think, she was sort of had a small role, but spoke so loudly about why Regina George was Regina George and why the Mean Girls were the Mean Girls.
Yeah.
So loudly. It takes me right into my, my one-liner is always, I think I said it on the phone with you last time we talked, Kevin, is like when Amy Poehler is like, "I'm not like other moms. I'm a cool mom." As just such a classic line from that, like, there are no rules in this house. I'm not like other moms. And then she looks at her daughter and she goes, "Right, Regina?" And Regina goes, "Please stop talking," which is classic, right? I mean, here we have this cool mom who has no rules and you can do anything goes. And the daughter is embarrassed by her. So it's not that being that permissive that, "Oh, I'm one of the girls, I'm dressing like you, I'm dancing with you, I'm doing all the things that you want to be doing." That's not what kids want either.
Yeah. Which like I love hanging out. You keep me young. Yeah, but to your point of like she had clearly raised him with the intent that she wanted to be the cool mom, but with that like was complete opposite of
Not so
what
cool.
she wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Damien. I feel like Damien was funny. Like he was he had a lot of great lines in there. And even Karen, she was the dumb girl. Like
Yeah.
she has some pretty good funny lines in there too. But
She's very good with her fifth sense.
that's
Having
right.
this can and fifth sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a character who you probably don't even recognize her by name. It was Kylie. She was only seen twice in the movie, and that was Regina George's little sister,
Oh God.
who was basically practicing, flashing Girls Gone Wild style on the TV while her mom was busy appeasing the high school mean girls. And I thought, I thought that was a really powerful. I mean, we saw her twice for 3 seconds each time, but it was really clear from those two scenes that like she was being raised to be vacuous. She was being raised to be self-absorbed. She was being raised to be the opposite of what, most parents want their kid to be. And so I thought that, that was a small role, but said a lot.
Yeah. The other one I thought could be in there is Rajiv, who played Kevin. Yeah, he was the mathlete, like the captain of the mathletes. He had a lot of good ones in there, and he had that whole rap that he did during like the student performance, which actually I learned Tina Fey wrote the lyrics for that rap on there. Oh, it was so good. But yeah, there's a lot of humor in this, which is always nice.
I mean, really, seriously, watching this with Steven was delightful for me.
Yeah, a lot.
I have a juvenile sense of humor anyway. I mean, anyone who's worked in a middle school for, 30, however long it was, 33 years, has a juvenile sense of humor. But watching him crack up as much as he did, it is a funny movie and poignant. And I mean, really, so much of Rosalind Wiseman's influence is throughout that book, throughout that movie, very, very intentionally. I mean, I think the Tina Fey role is kind of the Rosalind Wiseman role.
Yeah.
Minus, the book.
The first introduction to her character.
What was your favorite one-liner?
Well, if we go one-liner, I had a few that were in there that just cracked me up, and they were dumb. And actually, one was around crack. It was like, "Can you say crack again?" I just love hearing when you say crack. Yeah. That one definitely got me. What did you have other ones in there that you had as far as like one-liners?
I mean, I had 2 one-liners. One was funny and one was poignant, but I think they go together. The funny one was when they were Janice was working at the mall and Tina Fey's character, Miss Norbury, came into the mall, and Regina looked at her and said, "Ooh, I love seeing teachers outside of school. It's like seeing a dog walk on its hind legs," which I thought was hilarious. But it's sort of, I'm going to combine that with another line that was less funny, which was Cady when she got to the school. And it was this scene where she wanted to go to the bathroom. She got up to go to the bathroom. And the
All right,
science
I'm
teacher
glad
was
you're
like,
bringing this one up.
"Where are you going?" And she said, "I have to go to the bathroom." He said, "Well, you need a pass to go to the bathroom." And she said, "Oh, can I have a pass?" And he's like, "Nice try. Sit down." And she said, "I got in trouble for the most random things. I had never lived in a world where adults didn't trust me, where they were always yelling at me." And so I would say those two lines together, Cady paints a picture of a world where adults don't trust kids and are constantly like looking for what they did wrong and giving them this hard time and all this rule bound, which is why when you see a teacher at the mall, it's as weird as watching a dog walk on his hind legs, because they're outside of the space where they have this power and authority over you. And,
Right.
and that power and authority defines your relationship with them. So to see them in the mall, it's like, this is as weird as a dog walking on his hind legs. It's like, here's my teacher, but she can't tell me anything. She can't make me do anything. She can't yell at me. In fact, I can tell her because I work here and she doesn't. It's the role reversal. So I thought those two lines together said a lot about what schools can feel like for teenagers.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm glad you brought that one up. Yeah. Any other one-liners in there? I'm scrolling through my notes here to see if there's any other ones.
Just when Amy Poehler brought the drinks and Cady said, "Is there any alcohol in there?" And she's like, "No, do you want a little bit?" You're going to drink. I prefer you do it in the home.
Yeah, there was another sort of serious line that I liked was when Katie's dad, she was down and the dad said, "You're not a warthog, you're a lion." And again, it was a moment of like, this is who we are. It was like a moment of family acculturation, which is like, this is who we are. You're not a warthog, you're a lion. And so that kind of moment where a parent can help define like what our family is about. So I love that line as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Have you ever wondered how a simple change in your classroom can revolutionize learning? At K-12, we believe the physical space is key. When we partnered with Gary Community Schools in Indiana, something incredible happened. Their classrooms were outdated and uninspiring. Using our radically student-centered approach, we reimagined their spaces. The transformation was nothing short of amazing. Teachers saw immediate results, students came back from winter break excited, more engaged, collaboration increased, and overall performance improved. One student even shared, "We have new furniture, it's like Christmas all over again." On the first day back, local media came in to cover the story, capturing the joy and excitement of students discovering their new learning environments. See how we can transform your school today. Visit kay-twelve.com to learn more about our innovative approach. K-12, because every student deserves an inspiring place to learn. Visit kay-twelve.com today.
If we were going to go realistic or ridiculous, things that to you that really stood out of either like, yeah, that was a real, we've hit some of them that are kind of more realistic. Anything ridiculous or anything else in these categories you guys want to go through?
I mean, I think most of it was ridiculous just because everything was so exaggerated for effect, and it had the effect. It's still a movie that people quote, and that people remember because of some of the themes that permeated. But I think there's plenty in it that's realistic. I think that whole notion of who am I? This is what adolescents are trying to figure out. Who am I? And even though Cady really started that whole interaction with the plastics group to appease her friend Janice and to like sort of get information, it very quickly blurred into, I guess this is who I am.
Yeah.
By default.
Yeah.
And I think kids lose themselves.
Another funny line that makes me think of, Nancy, is when Cady says, "I know it may look like I became a bitch, but that's only because I was acting like a bitch." Right. But again, it's like funny because we think like, what is identity? What is culture? It is really in the end behaviors. It's like how you behave is who you are. And, again, back to what we're doing with our family culture is like, we're helping parents like identify the behaviors and help kids practice those behaviors, because how you behave is who you are.
Right? Yeah. Yep. It is. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I had another one-liner into that, totally unrelated to anything. It's just another one that just made me laugh, was when they were doing kind of like the trust falls, and then the one girl comes up and she's like, she starts like telling, like confessing, and someone's in the back goes, she doesn't even go here. And then like, oh yeah, we'll just
She just wanted to be in
send
the
you to
drama
something.
somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the one that I thought was most ridiculous actually was Aaron, like the main guy that Katie has a crush on. He clearly needed help with math. Like, she knew the math way better than him. And by the end of the movie, they're talking about how he goes to Northwestern. Like,
Right.
nope, he wouldn't have got into Northwestern.
Right. That part was unrealistic, but the part where the girl acts dumb to get the guy to
Yes,
help her, that
very
part was
realistic.
definitely potentially realistic.
Yeah.
Or even the rules about, oh, you can't like him because that's somebody else's that's Regina's ex-boyfriend. You can't
Yeah.
and that's, I mean, there are some really powerful undercurrents in girl world that would seem really hard to understand if you are coming from Africa, right?
Yeah. Well, what was the line on there of like, if you can't date somebody, that's like the first rule of feminism.
Yeah.
Feminism. Yeah, right. First rule of feminism.
First rule of feminism.
I will say one other thing that probably, maybe this goes to the category of technology and how things have changed, but like there was something kind of quaint and charming about watching a movie where when kids fought with each other, they actually really fought in the hallway, or like where if you wanted to bully somebody, you actually had to walk right up to them and like threaten to take their lunch money. Now it's like when that scene broke down, when the whole culture broke down and everybody was fighting, they all would have been on their phones just typing mean things about each other,
or filming it.
Or filming it and
posting it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great transition into, we call it the iPhone effect category of like what would change. And we also have not talked about, they remade this movie last year in 2024. I purposely did not watch it or read anything about it because I'm sure that may be a future one for us to go through, but I didn't want to kind of get them confused or reference back to it. But huge difference, right? I mean, all that social interaction now is happening on the phones, on social media, on Snapchat and TikTok and everything else that they're doing. There's a lot of those components that, like, man, I can't imagine any of that happening today, because it would have happened in front of everyone because they put it on Snapchat.
Well, even like the burn book, she photocopied and had to throw the papers on the ground for people to see it. I mean, we have way more efficient ways to disseminate.
That's right. We can insult people a lot faster and better now.
Like this.
That's funny. I've been cleaning out my house a little bit and just trying to parse things down, and I have found boxes and boxes of letters and notes that we wrote to each other. It was like, that was the time of writing with a pen and paper, and you would send letters off in the mail to each other, or write notes to each other between class. That's what texting is now for kids. And it was just, again, very, very quaint to see all of that. I couldn't believe all these letters I had written. I'm like, who knew? And I read a couple of them. I'm like, oh dear gosh, we need to get rid of all of these, because
yeah. The part of the technology that actually like surprised me in the movie was they were in the mall, and Regina actually pulls out a cell phone and calls the other girl's mom and calls her on the cell phone. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, that was such a really short window where phones were actually used as phones.
Yeah, like, right. Well, the first iPhone was 2007, and this movie was 2004.
So but there was a window like where like, I mean, I didn't have phones, like even throughout college. I remember one of my friends had a pager, so we weren't at the point where we had cell phones yet, but pager, and we just referred to him as the drug dealer because he had a pager. Why else would you have a pager?
By the way, what a mean scene, wasn't it, when she called the girls home and told the mom that it was Planned Parenthood calling back about her test results?
Yeah.
Boy,
that was the meanest.
That was the meanest mean girl move.
Yeah. But it was weird. It was weird to think like this was made in this little pocket of
Mhm.
time where they had cell phones, but they didn't have, the
Mhm.
iPhone and the social media on top of that. That's one that I think like
Yeah.
probably will not age well
No.
for
Well,
people to be like, well, what? Like, what was going on there?
and the iPhone effect, really, we're living it. We're,
Yeah.
we kids are living the iPhone effect now.
Yeah.
In fact, in a super interesting way, kids are communicating with their parents throughout the day with their phones,
Yeah.
which is in a way kind of like, oh, how nice that they're communicating, but it's more like, I need this, you need to do this. Like, I used to get calls from parents telling me that their kids were in the bathroom crying while I
Mm.
was in my office working with somebody. I'd pick up the phone and I'm like, how would you have known that? You wouldn't have known that. So it's like that, in a little bit of invasive, like in the moment parenting that's happening now with the iPhone effect, but
Yeah.
it's not the healthiest.
Yeah, I would say something else. I think this is like the elephant in the room of this movie, which is this is a movie made in 2004 about how hard it is in school and how terrible it is and how rough it is with kids. If you look at the mental health statistics today, kids are way less happy today than they were in 2004. Way more anxious, way more depression, way
Yeah.
more loneliness. So like this movie that ironically was trying to tell the story of how challenging it is to be a teenager is actually made in a golden age compared to the age that kids are living in
It
now.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I feel like maybe now's a good time because I feel like around this conversation, it's hard not to bring up Jonathan Haidt's book on
Yeah.
anxious generation, and is there some like kind of awakening that's happening now between the adults here of recognizing the impact that the
Yeah.
iPhone effect really
Yeah, no,
is
this
having?
I think the statistics that Jonathan Haidt lays out are really powerful and really important. And a lot of our work at Our Family Culture is centered on addressing the kind of mental health crisis that's existing for kids and for parents as well. And I think we love a lot of what Jonathan Haidt says about like unstructured play and giving kids more autonomy and more agency. A lot of his suggestions are about keeping kids away from the negative things that happen on technology. And I think those are collective challenges for communities and schools to wrestle with. What we're trying to do at Our Family Culture is say your kids are going to experience a lot of that stuff. They're going to have a lot of negative influences through technology. Our job as parents is to raise strong enough kids that they won't get swept off course by those things. What we're helping parents do is raise kids who know who they are, who are so clear about what we stand for and what we believe in, because we've been talking about it as a family year after year after year, that when the winds of negativity blow on social media, we're like, yeah, I'm not making a video of myself destroying the bathroom in the high school to put on TikTok. I don't care if that's a challenge. I'm not doing it because that's the wrong thing to do. We don't, so I think that whole question of like, how do we protect our kids from that is maybe for us best answered by how do we strengthen our kids so they're not adversely affected by that.
I want to dig into that topic a lot, and maybe we could even tie it back into Mean Girls here of like if like here you have kind of two different extreme like parenting models like
Yeah.
you, and I shouldn't even really call them extreme because maybe it's not extreme to today's standards of it. Of you have kind of the homeschool, which is different. Like her experience of like in Africa is more of like an experiential type of youth versus more of like what we would say is typical more homeschool here. And then obviously you have like the Amy Poehler type of parenting that is just like, like I'm just going to give my kid everything they ask for and try to be the cool mom. And at what age, does this type of parenting start happening? Because I'm coming through this here and like watching my kids go through, and it's a big discussion between parents now of like, we don't really have a lot of guidance right now of how to parent, through like this change, this era of
Yeah.
dealing with, the technology component, having COVID wrapped into there. When you guys are looking at your work, is there a certain age where you think like starting to have these conversations are the right time to do it?
No, it's never too early to have those conversations. What Our Family Culture is really an ideal audience would be people with early elementary age kids, but you can start earlier than that, and you can start later than that, because like Steven said earlier, our goal, and the way the system is designed is to just help families identify what is fundamental to our family? What are the behaviors that we believe in as a family, that when you talk about the Shapiro family, you know what they stand for. This is who they are. They are people who bounce back. Those Shapiros, they show up for others. They do their part. Like if I'm gonna do something with them, I know they're gonna show up, they're gonna do their part. So we've developed 44 different, we call them actually fundamentals, family fundamentals. And the idea of the system is that the first thing you do as parents is you pick between 13 and 20 or so fundamentals, and you practice one each week in little small increments, little bites of discussion questions and vulnerability questions and videos and activities, and not things that'll take just add this 30 minutes to your day every day and you'll be a good parent. No, it's not that, because who's got time for that? Nobody. And so it's just little injections of really practicing these behaviors over and over and over again. You go through one of your fundamentals a week. If you have 15 of them, after 15 weeks, you start back over. It's not the flavor of the month. It's not, we talked about that.
Right.
It's not that, because
over the course of 3 and 4 and 5 years, we've had 10 different weeks where we talked about that intensively. We're in the middle of the conversation about do the right thing. Oh my God, we've been talking about the importance of curiosity for years in our family. And I would say, when you ask about the age, I mean, we actually built into the system children's books, in some cases picture books, that relate to each of the fundamentals. So you may have a kid that's 1 or 2 years old, but which books are you reading to them? And how are you choosing the books you're going to read? And if you want to raise a kid who practices kindness, or who cares about the environment or the earth, you should be reading the books that are aligned with those things. And so we're actually sharing, here are titles you can start reading to your kids. So it's never too young to start building that family culture.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we've had a lot of these conversations and just feel like it is desperately needed. Like, parents just really don't have kind of that guidance that I think other generations may have had, whether it was kind of coming from, having tighter, like, extended families in the past, of having more of the influence, the
well,
multi-generational influence.
that they had or they didn't have.
True.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think that we're a culture that is so big on getting ready to, hear what to expect when you're expecting, what to expect your first year and the toddler years, and here you go, great. But the truth of the matter is, and when we look at it from an educator perspective, educators are culture builders. That's what we do. You build a culture with a group of kids every year, sometimes multiple groups of kids, depending on what your position is. You build a culture, and based on the culture that you build, that's kind of how people live in the space with you. Well, we talk about building cultures at work. We talk about building culture at
Sports
school.
teams.
Right?
Sports teams for sure.
Yeah, but we don't talk about the most important culture you'll ever build. And that's your family. And the culture that you build in your family is the culture that then goes out into these other cultures, and is able to contribute, or not, but is able to contribute in healthy ways.
Yeah, and I would say, my 3 kids are grown, and they live a couple of them live in Chicago, one in Wisconsin. I just went up and visited. My wife and I went and spent 5 days with our kids. It was such a joy to be with our kids. And the reason is because, first of all, our kids live out the things that we think are most important, because my wife and I really, really intentionally raised them with the things that we cared about. But also, like, we were having these conversations. We're doing our family culture with our adult kids. So, like, our fundamental for this week was love yourself, but not too much. And so we were having these great conversations about, what do we love most about ourselves? What are the ways that we can allow what we love about ourselves to be too much? And so the conversation never ends with the family if you really do it the right way. And that's what we're trying to help parents do.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. Because it's stuff that there's just so many things, and so many that it is hard, like, as a parent to do that. And yeah, I think you hit it exactly, of like those really early years, like the guiding light, like if we had any issues, it was always like the pediatrician, like
Right.
they're the expert on kids
Yeah.
in there. And I do think, there's a need now, like, my wife and I went through this parenting class based on this book called Parenting. And I'm like, oh, they broke it out of like 0 to 5 is about discipline. Like, okay, And then 5 to 12 is more about where you're doing more of like you're training them, like you
Yeah.
are like really talking through that, which I think is like probably the most important time in development in there, where I felt like as a young parent, like everyone was really worried about that 0 to 5, like when can they, like just like the really basic things. But when you're in that stage, it's really easy to just be in that stage and not take a bigger view of like, what do I really want for my kids?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Kevin, I appreciate you raising that because I think there's all this research. I think most parents would agree. Like, raising kids as a parent is probably the most important job you'll do. Almost everybody says, I want to be good at my job, but I really want to be good as a parent. I really want my kids to grow up to be healthy and well. And we don't really have a lot of structure to support
right.
that. It's the most
Yeah,
important thing we'll ever do, and we often leave it to chance. And I would dare say also that the Surgeon General came out with a report about how overwhelmed parents are. We're busy. Parents are overwhelmed and busy, and we tried to create a system that's like just take 5 minutes with your kids a day. Like it's not. It doesn't have to be time consuming.
yeah,
It just has to be intentional and
Right.
purposeful. And if you
yeah,
do these things repetitively over month after month, year after year, this is what happens. This is foundational stuff that will stay forever. Small effort, huge results.
We
yeah,
talk a lot about the parent conference moment. Like when you think about raising your kids and think about going to a parent conference for one of your children, and what is it that you could go into a conference and have the teacher say that would make you go put your hand on your heart and be like, ah, that's my
yeah,
kid. Right? Probably not that they got 100 on the test, although you
right.
might be proud of that. But what is the essence of who your child is? And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to help parents who are doing the best they can and are probably doing a pretty good job. I mean, most people are out there doing the best they can do. We're just saying we want to offer you something that will help you be super intentional about how you do it. Because I'll tell you the what we talk about all the time is we wish we had this when we were parents, when we were young parents. I mean, we had some luck in that we were educators, and so as educators, you have some of that background of culture building and how you are, ways of being with kids to help them to open up and to learn from you. But these are things we want to provide for our children so that when they have children, they can carry on that tradition. Our father passed away when he was 56 years old. Our kids, he has 7 grandkids. He never got to meet any of them. But if he were to show up somehow right now, he'd look at them and be like, how did they learn that? That's what I taught my kids.
Yeah.
Because it was so important. The things that he taught us were so important to him that we taught them to our kids. And we want to offer that intentionality in a big way to people. We want to make the world really a better place, one family at a time.
Yeah,
That's our retirement mission.
That's our
yeah.
mission. I would say one final thing is that Nancy and I have been working on this for 2 years, and we literally are rolling it out like this week. This is being recorded at the end of
Nice.
March 2025. We're just rolling it out. And the system is simple, easy to use, affordable. There's a 30-day free money back. If you try it, you don't have to pay anything for the first 30 days. So it doesn't cost you anything to just play around and explore the system. We're offering a discount through Mother's Day, the cheapest it will ever be. So I think we're trying to make it really easy for people to say yes, because we're pretty confident that once you say yes and start doing this, you'll be like, oh my gosh, like our family, I feel solid in a way that I didn't before about who our kids are going to become. And we just want to get people in there to play because we think they're going to be really excited once they get in.
Yeah, yeah,
We want
that's
to
great.
help people raise fewer mean girls.
That's right. Yes, it would definitely make the world a better place if that was the case. Yeah, well, I love that you're doing that. I think it's desperately needed, of some attention, some guidance of where parents go, because it is really easy to get sucked into a bunch of other things, whether the extracurriculars become more important than other things. And it's something that, to your point of like, it makes sense when we look at other parts of our life, we're better and better at doing that. We do it for our sports teams, we do it for our work life, but are we really doing that for our families? yeah, I don't know if there's data on it, but I would think the data is pretty low of who actually is doing that. I always joke around with my, like, I came up with 3 things probably, like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 years ago. I kind of want to change them now, but at the time I just wrote it with a dry erase on their mirror, their bathroom mirror, and
Aw,
it still sticks with them.
what
I
were
say,
they?
like,
What
what do we
were they,
care?
Kevin?
Be kind, be helpful, have fun.
Oh,
Like
Nice.
like yeah, take that
brilliant.
approach and just try to, like, reiterate that of, like, when they're doing anything of, like, are you being kind? Are you being helpful?
Well, Kevin, we are excited for you to jump into our family culture, and
Yeah,
we
cool.
will, and to see which of those fundamentals like speak to you and which ones resonate. And I think it's interesting for families because you're all in the middle of the journey as a parent when you join our family culture, but there will be things that you're like, oh, that's one that we really are already sort of focused on, and others are like, I wish we were spending more time
Yeah.
focusing on that, or we have a kid that really could use that.
Yeah.
We got a kid that just leaves the house like a hurricane blew through it every time. I think we need leave it better than you found it as one of our family fundamentals because we have a kid that's not leaving it better than they found it, and we need to make that part of our family's conversation. So once you start looking at the fundamentals, you're like, I see the ones. Some of them just will really speak to you as a parent, and you'll be like, yeah, this is what we want to. These are the ones we want to really focus on.
Yep. Good. Yeah. Well, I will have links in the show notes here for this, but definitely recommend. Think about this. I mean, there's so many of the parents that are out there. We kind of joke around of, like, the kids get influenced by their peers and they say, like, well, nobody's doing that, and we probably need to be doing that more as parents. So the more that we feel like other families are doing that, it helps to
Absolutely.
know, because yeah, we're social. We
Right.
all
Do it.
want to be part of the bigger community too, and to understand, yeah, how we do that. So I know we've talked about, like, I think there is a space, because we know there are a lot of school leaders that listen to this too. I do think there is a space to be some of the leaders in the community to offer some of these tools out to parents and some guidance to the parents. I think our
Yeah.
schools could do a better job than
100%. If you're a school leader listening to this podcast, reach out to us. We would love to run a session for your parents to help them think about building family culture. There's nothing more common than hearing teachers go, God, I wish parents were sending kids to us
yeah.
that, it's like, yeah, but parents need support in doing that. And this is
Yeah.
what we're trying to build for.
It's a little bit like not to go too deep on it, but it's a little bit of where I feel like the schools have lost some of the trust in there, is that it was a little bit of like, okay, we own this over here, but we're going to keep a total, like, separation on here, and it kind of became a little bit of like us versus them type of thing. But man, parents really are craving this, and I think the
Well,
more that we can offer.
for sure, it's social emotional learning, but it's parents getting to choose what it is that is critical to their family, and every family who participates, who is one of the part of the our family culture community, because we're really trying to build this as a larger community. Everyone will have different culture blueprints for their families. Not everyone will have chosen the same
Right.
fundamentals, and it doesn't matter. They'll all be working on things that will show up in the world, and that people will be curious about with one another. And you talk about communities, like, think about a community where many families are practicing this,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, like, where is the shift, where is the cultural shift that we start seeing in that community?
No.
It has the potential to be quite powerful.
Yeah, that's what I get excited about the movement. So keep it up, keep doing it. Yeah, I think that'll be great. Anything else that we want to say as we wrap this up?
Kevin, we love your work. We appreciate you having us
Yeah.
on. It's always fun to talk with you, and I think you're always thinking about the important things, and obviously the people who follow you and listen to you are interested in those important things. So we're glad to be connecting with your audience.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you so
anytime. Yeah.
much.
Yep. Love this conversation. To the audience, definitely look in the show notes, get some more information on what Stephen and Nancy are working on. I think it's, especially for parents, especially if you have, again, I think any age, but I really think that like that 5 to 12 age is so important. I feel like there's so much focus on that 0 to 5, and then that 5 to 12, for some reason, I feel like that's where we're starting to get off track, and where kind of sports and other activities kind of start dictating kind of our lives a little too much. We start losing those, those family dinners and things because we start getting busy doing everything else, that we start losing some of that foundation. But hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this to, and betterlearningpodcast.com is our hub for everything. If you have any feedback or suggestions, we have forums, things on there, and we really take a lot of that to heart and use it to make sure that we're picking good topics and things to bring in future episodes. So Steven, Nancy, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.